Um, like I said earlier, I am Kiara Sullivan. I am from the Rhondda Valleys in South Wales, and I have been coordinating the Cultural Youth Associate panel since about July. And we've done some really great work really late in the evening. So it's a massive kind of thank you to the youth panel that this is going on tonight. We wanted to extend our thanks to Sian Thomas. She's currently not able to be here this evening, but she's been supporting the youth panel and making sure that the young people involved have been paid fairly for their time that they've given, for the expertise, kind of the knowledge. So without her, then I don't know if many young people would be here. So the Cultural Associate Youth Panel came together as we all kind of experienced how tough it is to get our first job. And I know that many people do find it tough to get their first job. But we became aware of Kickstart and how it's a pathway into a career, and we wanted to do everything we could to get the word out to yourselves and for all the other kind of organisations across the arts, cultural and heritage sector. And we are representing all of Wales, so we have people from the north, we have people from the mid, the south and the west, which I think is an amazing accomplishment, if I can say so myself. And all of us have kind of agreed through previous conversations that we've all been labelled as disadvantaged young people in various different ways. So we feel that we have the most valid experiences to share with you about how you can help young people get a job, the kind of job descriptions that go with it, the kind of interview process. If we are the young people who have been labelled as disadvantaged, then surely we have the best knowledge to share. And for any of you who don't know, if you just came across this yesterday or the day before or in the last few weeks, Kickstart is for everyone who has the capacity to and who wants to offer a job opportunity for young people aged 16 to 24 who are in receipt of universal credit. That's the only kind of requirement of a young person to be on a Kickstart placement, is that they're on universal credit. So the event is going to go, I'm going to give a breakdown of the event basically. So we're going to watch a video, which is our call to action. And some of you may have already seen it because you've been sharing it across your social medias. But for those of you who've just literally joined the Eventbrite and signed yourself up, it'd be a really great opportunity for you to see all the amazing work that the young people a part of the panel have done. We're then going to hear from some of the young people from the panel. There then is going to be a short Q&A directed at the young people, and this is more for you to want to know or find out about them instead of Kickstart, because after the Q&A we will have some very lovely speakers talking about all Kickstart related topics. And then there'll be an opportunity for breakout rooms where you can talk to whoever you need to talk to about what you're struggling with, if you're already in the process of Kickstart placements, or how to start if you're right at the beginning, and then we'll bring everyone back together. So Tom, if you wouldn't mind playing the video, as soon as the video is finished, I'm going to just let Nirushan introduce himself, who is a part of the youth panel, and he will start off the young panel's talks, if that's okay. Thank you, Tom.
We're all really aware of the urgency around Kickstart because we've only got until the 31st of December to get organisations enrolled and to get young people enrolled in these placements.
We recognise and understand the steps organisations are taking to increase youth involvement within their work, how they are trying to incorporate values to reach all young people from different backgrounds. We acknowledge there's been a movement within the arts, culture, heritage and creative industries to create opportunities for young people leaving education and trying to build their career within the sector.
However, we feel arts organisations can go a step further in supporting young people at the start of their careers with the Kickstart scheme. We want to ensure that there's mutual benefit between both parties, that being the arts organisation and the young person. This opportunity is for talented young people to be embedded within your organisation, and they should be treated like any other employee. It will be their job, not an internship, not a placement, and not a voluntary role. This should be reflected in the job description that uses language that focuses on attributes rather than experience and qualification. And this opportunity must be offered bilingually. Welsh speakers should have the opportunity to apply, communicate, and interview in Welsh.
Whilst there is no financial burden on the organisation, we want to ensure lasting career opportunities for the young person taking part in the scheme. This means providing networking opportunities, training, and support beyond the 6 months. This scheme provides opportunities all across Wales, which will allow young people in their community to develop, grow within an organisation, and forge a career within the arts sector.
We are appealing to you as there is an urgency to enrol young people into the Kickstart scheme within your organisation before the 31st of December. This is a critical moment for young people and the future of the arts in Wales. It is vital that we take advantage of the funding opportunities. Please come along to our virtual Kickstart event on the 21st of September, 5:30 till 7:30 if you would like to find out more.
Hi everyone, I'm Nirushan. I hope you enjoyed that video. I'm one of the panel members. Apologies for my voice. I have not been feeling well the past 2 days. But I'm well enough to come on the call and talk about something really important. I'm from Cardiff. I'm a uni student. I do law and politics, but I will also do a lot of campaigning and other projects when I can. And I'm going to start off with our conversations around the cultural contract and really thinking about how that fed into that video, but also to the wider work within the sector. When we got together, we realized the importance of making spaces inclusive, not just people from diverse backgrounds, but geographically as well. We realized the challenges the sector faced in getting people through the door. And this was really highlighted from our conversations within the cultural contract as well. So when we started to discuss that, we realized organizations have to be brave and courageous in taking the next steps in ensuring their practices and their work is reflective of the worlds that we are now. And only to do that, you have to have a co-design, a co-led approach, working with communities to come up with that contract, making sure it's accessible, inclusive, and equal in its approach and the way that they work. For us, the cultural contract is a really significant milestone, and things can only improve from where we are now and for the wider creative sector. I hope that video really highlighted a call to action. And for those that are in the room today, looking at the cultural contract within your organization, think about who's missing from the table and who needs to be there to be truly reflective on the work that you do and how they can feed into you so that your work is diverse and equal in its share, because we know the sector can sometimes be siloed, and we are not in that way of thinking anymore. It's about improving and making a commitment, not only by coming today, but making sure you do the follow-up afterwards, thinking about the contract, thinking about who's missing, and making sure you work with panels like ourselves and those within your communities to make arts more accessible and more inclusive. So yeah, that is my little pitch. I'll pass on to the next person.
Thank you, Nirushan. So as I said earlier, I'm Kiara Sullivan. I am 22 years old and I'm from the Rhondda Valleys. And we had many discussions around how tiresome it is that all of us do what we need to do to get the job that we want, or to get the career, the training experience that we want, only to come back to our community after either being in college, university, and not getting any opportunities, and that's whether it's to do with funding or that there are no opportunities to offer. So I think we all agreed that whenever we're looking for jobs, we're sick and tired of looking at Cardiff or London or further afield when we really want to be able to give back to the communities that give so much to us. I know that is my personal experience. I've grown up through Valley's Kids and Spark, and that was kind of the push. It gave me the push to go to university and realize that I could do what they did for me, for other young people in my community. So I think the really great thing about Kickstart is that if you have the opportunity and you have the resources to offer a Kickstart placement within your company, then please do, because for some young people, they might not have had the kind of experiences that us in the youth panel have had. They might not have had access to people within the community, and it can be a really good first kind of step into experiencing what a job is like if they want to be in the arts and cultural heritage sector. I think it's the most kind of nurturing place that you can be set up within, because people will treat you, in my case, people will treat you with the respect you deserve. They will listen to you, they will support you, and they will try to push further for you to take other steps for your career. So I know that if this was around when I was 16, I would have jumped at the gun for it, because I knew from the moment that I left college that I wanted to kind of work in the arts sector. But it's really important that for people, for everyone throughout the community, that they can then see that there are these opportunities being offered that they maybe never thought of before, and that they can have a real good chance of getting in, because like we've all been saying, there's no kind of you don't have to be really horrible with the job description saying you need this much experience or you need to have this qualification or this degree. You can literally take someone who has just left school, who probably had the worst time ever, and change their life around by offering them this opportunity. So that's kind of a lot of the conversations that stem from in our discussions in past months, is that we all want to give back to our community as much as we can, but we need the opportunities to. And we understand, and I definitely realise that a lot of communities, organisations do offer as much opportunity as they can, but this could be the kind of key step for someone who doesn't know what to do or knows exactly what they want to do and trial run it in a 6-month placement. So that is kind of my kind of take on the whole kind of Kickstart and the cultural contracts and the discussions we've been having over the last 2 months, that we're sick and tired of having to go further afield. And I know there are people in this room who agree with me, because I'm working on something else to try to sustain a pathway in the RCT area. But as we have everyone in the room from all over the place, please just look at the opportunity, and if you can offer it, then please do, because it's very hard to get a job in most communities. And I know that you might not be able to offer many, but by offering one, you can then stem so many other opportunities coming from it. So that is all I'm going to say, because I could talk about this topic for hours and hours, and the people in the room who know me knows that I can. So I'm going to pass over to Fahadi.
Hello everyone. I'll just excuse my voice. I've currently got a bit of a flu, but I'm okay. I'm just going to talk briefly, but I'll introduce myself first. My name is Fahadi. A little bit of background on me. I'm a former Associate Director at National Theatre Wales and Commonwealth Theatre. I'm currently a student studying in Devon, and you know, a lot of the work that I've done previous to this has been around supporting young people, you know, supporting young people's voices, you know, and advocating for young people, but also trying to create opportunities for young people. And being involved in this project around the Kickstart scheme is a continuation of that ambition. So, you know, giving young people opportunities to have a better future is something that as a collective we all focus on, and it's something that we really want to achieve. And we've kind of identified this Kickstart scheme as one of those ways that we can, you know, provide those opportunities and give young people a better future. And, you know, what we've noticed is that, you know, without organizations like yours coming together, and kind of giving young people that support, we're leaving gaping holes in the sort of support that young people would need to kind of enter the arts. And when we're talking about the arts and entering the arts, we all know that it's very difficult, especially in an industry where it's more who you know rather than what you know. And sometimes getting that initial foot in the door can be very, very difficult. And that also off the back of a global pandemic where opportunities are there's not a lot of opportunities that come around. So what we've noticed is that, young people are the future and that we need to support them. And that through this Kickstart scheme, we can provide those opportunities for young people to get their foot in the door and actually have a prosperous career within the arts. Like we said before, this is something that has no financial burden on the whole organization. And it's a really good opportunity to kind of shape what the future of the arts looks like. You bring a young person in and you can teach them the ropes. And then one day they'll be doing a similar thing in the future. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say for now. But I'll just say it's vitally important that we support the future generation of the arts and give them as much support as they need. Just like I've been given the support that I needed when I was entering the arts. If it wasn't for an organization, coming to me and kind of giving me the opportunity to enter the arts, then I probably wouldn't have much, input and say and ambition to pursue a career in the arts. But because an organization came to me and kind of offered me an opportunity, I went for it, and that's how I'm here today. So yeah, I would say give the Kickstart scheme a consideration, look into it, and definitely, if you want to make the future of the arts better for young people, then I'll give it a go. So there you go. That's all from me for now. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Arabella. I'm 24 years old and I'm a freelance writer and creative from Denbighshire in North Wales. I wanted to get involved with this youth panel as I feel that it's vital to get young people into creative jobs across Wales, and we're hoping that this can happen through Kickstart, as Fahadi has just mentioned. So I'm going to be speaking a little bit about access to the arts in North Wales, based on my own kind of experiences. And then you'll hear from Gwernan on this too in Welsh, as she's also based in North Wales. So something that we kind of discussed in our meetings, because we're a Wales-wide youth panel, it became quite apparent that there was this sort of like north-south divide, which I'm sure some of you are already familiar with, in terms of funding and opportunities. And this even extends to sort of the school curriculum. In my own experience, there was sort of a lack of exposure to arts, music and drama, particularly at crucial stages like GCSE and A level. And obviously this is due to funding. So that's something that is really unfortunate, and it means that perhaps people don't have the same opportunity to access the arts in North Wales. And we're hoping that the Kickstart scheme, because it is for young people from age 16, so sort of school leaving age, up until my age, age 24, I'm a graduate, it allows for people to explore areas that they might not have had the opportunity to do before in school. So yeah, I would definitely urge you to consider both school leavers and those in the older side of that age bracket, because it's vital that we make sure that everybody has an equal opportunity to get these Kickstart jobs. Something else that kind of I've experienced in North Wales is the difficulty of the kind of physical engagement with art centres if you live in a rural area like myself. Public transport is basically non-existent. So, if you did get an opportunity or a job, it's, difficult to get there. So I think it makes it a lot harder to work in these sectors unless you have the privilege of having a car, or, you have somebody who you can car share with. And I would just urge you to consider this if you're an organisation in North Wales. Make sure that, there are provisions in place for those who live in rural areas, because your future employees might have to rely on public transport. And of course, accessibility then becomes an even greater issue for those who have additional requirements and access requirements. So yeah, I just feel really strongly that this is something that needs to be considered when you're running a Kickstart. And I believe we might have some people attending today who can advise you if you would like to offer a Kickstart placement to somebody with additional needs. Because we as young people feel it's really important to make sure that this opportunity is available to everybody, as the other speakers have already mentioned. And yeah, access is definitely important. So yeah, please consider that if you are going to be running one of these placements. And now you're going to hear from Gwernan in Welsh.
Pnawn da, fy enw i di Gwernan Brooks a dwi'n 17 ac yn byw yng Ngwynedd. Dwi'n astudio Celf, Cymraeg a Hanes ar gyfer y lefel A. Dwi'n gynaelod y Criw Celf, sef grŵp celf gwledol. Hefyd, dwi'n gynaelod y Sparc, sef grŵp perfformio a Galeri Caernarfon, ac yn aelod o Criw ifanc Branwen. Yn ein barn ni, mae'r diffyg mynediad i'r celfyddydau yng Nghymru wledig yn broblem. Un o'r prif achosion yw nad ydy disgyblion mewn ysgolion llai yn gallu cael mynediad i'r pynciau celfyddydol yn enwedig ar gamau hanfodol fel tgau a safon uwch. Mae gwasanaethau trefnidiaeth gyhoeddus wael yn ei gwneud yn anodd mynychu canolfannau celfyddydol os ydych chi'n byw mewn ardaloedd gwledig neu y deulu incwm isel. Yn ei dro, mae hyn yn ei gwneud yn anoddach cael mynediad a gweithio o fewn y sectorau hyn. Mae angen ystyried hyn gyda gweithwyr Kickstart oherwydd gall llawer ddibynnu ar drefnidiaeth gyhoeddus. Mae unigolion ac anghenion ychwanegol i gofynion mynediad yn ei gweld yn anoddach mynychu'r lleoliadau celfyddydol hyn a'r cymunedau gwledig y maent yn ei gwasanaethu. Diolch, byddwn ni'n symud ymlaen at y siaradwr nesaf rwan.
Chris, would you like to introduce yourself? Are you still with us?
I am still with you.
Is your
I apologise for being on my phone tonight. I forgot to bring my laptop with me. So am I on loud?
You are, we just can't see you.
Okay. So I'm Chris, I'm a visual artist, heritage researcher and youth worker based in West Wales near Aberystwyth. I specialise in geometric abstract art and the management of built community-owned heritage sites. I'm keen to empower the current generation of new practitioners within the sector to move beyond the tired labels of over and underqualified and towards more attribute-led process for the cultural sector. There we go. That's me. I don't know why my camera went off during that. I think it was because I flipped onto a different screen to see my notes.
That's okay, Chris. Thank you.
So now we're going to hear from Andrew Ogun. Thank you, Andrew, for being here. Andrew is the agent for change at Arts Council Wales, and he's just going to talk to you. So I'll pass over to Andrew.
Thank you, Arabella. Nice to see so many of you today, so many familiar faces. Yeah, for me, I think it was important to hear from the youth panel and for me to connect with them, because so much of what they're aiming to do and so much of their values aligns with myself personally and what we are also trying to do at Arts Council as well. I think there's been a lot of talk about recovery after COVID and a lot of talk about having a healthy arts ecology. And I think without considering the next generation of people, people who may have not had access to opportunities like other people who face any kind of barriers, whether that be because of any of their characteristics, whether that be socioeconomic barriers, etc. I think that conversation can be had without them at the core of that dialogue. You know, I think back to myself personally. I remember I managed to get an internship with Linklaters in London through the Social Mobility Foundation when I was like 17 years old, and I was considering going into law at that point. And that was only 2 weeks. And even though after that, that internship, I decided that I didn't think law was going to be for me. That experience and you know, coming from Newport and getting the opportunity to live in London for a couple of weeks, and the people I met, the networking opportunities, is something that I've always carried with me. And it shows that once you have that kind of support, that ability to experience and open up to this kind of world that prepares you for the working world, that prepares you for moving forward, it can generally have a profound impact on you, whether you realize that that's, you know, what you want to go on and do as you get older, or even if you realize that that's not what you want to do. Sometimes it's just as important to know what you don't want to do as it is to know what you do want to do. So I hold on to that experience, and for us at Arts Council, being able to provide that experience to other people as well is crucial. And you know, we are taking up the Kickstart, and whoever is appointed will be working alongside me to support the work I'm doing as Agent for Change. So you know, it's amazing for us and for me to see how this is going to bear fruit, and to see the, you know, the relationship blossom between myself and Arts Council and whoever we decide to appoint. But for me, it's also important in that sense of there's a lot of, you know, strategic conversations surrounding the Future Generation Act, and in terms of well-being and the cultural contract, all these kind of strands of work that are being discussed at that kind of strategic level. But you know, we need to see this in action. We need to see this being translated. And I think the Kickstart is an amazing opportunity for us to actualize that vision of looking after that next generation, and of looking after people who are going to be leading the charge when it comes to changing the arts and culture sector in Wales for the future. Because you know, that's what matters most, is building towards that equitable and inclusive and diverse arts and culture sector that we want to see. And it starts with schemes like this, because you know, 6 months with an organization is life-changing. This can be very, very life-changing, and could change the life of a young person completely. And I think it's an amazing scheme, and something that I hope you know, has a real long-term legacy and impact, and become sustainable, and something that I hope arts organizations actually see the value in, and strive towards embedding this person in the organization. Because again, you know, it's not just a tick box exercise. This person has to feel like a valued member of whatever organization they're working with, and has to feel that they're actually contributing to what's happening, and they're not just there just because of a scheme. And again, instilling that sense of value within an individual, and how they can help an organization and how they can flourish in that position, is also, you know, one of the key elements of the cultural contract and of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Acts, which are really, really important pillars in Welsh society at the moment. So for us at Arts Council, it's just a great opportunity, and we urge, you know, all organizations, all arts and cultural organizations and organizations that work with us, to take up this opportunity and to do it in a way that is equitable, and in a way that changes the power dynamic, where it's not just an organization kind of extracting from an individual, you know, to pick up on things that no one wants to do, but actually embedding them within the organization and giving them that skill set that they're going to use when they move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Now we're going to hear from Tom Goddard, who is the project producer at Criw. He's been a vital part of this group, and yeah, without him, we wouldn't have been able to do the youth panel. So yeah, over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Arabella. Hi, everyone. My name is Tom Goddard. I'm a visual artist, and I have a social arts practice. As Arabella said, I run Criw in the Central South region as a freelancer for the Arts Active Trust. I left school at 16 after my 15 after my GCSE, and I know firsthand how daunting it is. I didn't take a traditional route into the creative sector, and there were lots of false starts and sort of happy failures along the way. It took me over a decade to get my first long-term contract of work in the sector, after doing lots of short-term projects, which, although were a great learning curve with some brilliant organizations that I'm very thankful for, it meant having many low-paid part-time jobs at a range of different hours and organizations to pay my bills. I work with a lot of young people, and have done over the last 10 years. And having worked with this youth panel, I am blown away, as I'm sure you are, just by meeting them this evening. Their ability, their dedication, their motivation, their attitude, and fundamentally, I feel they should and must be given an opportunity to show what they can do within the cultural sector now, not tomorrow, but now. It is important to connect the opportunities that are being offered across the country to young people. We need to work together as a sector to identify the routes through these schemes so it's transparent and visible to young people and is shaped so that it works for them. Cultural organisations of all sizes must embrace these schemes for the benefit of young people, both now and in the future, strengthening and connecting the cultural sector to young people from less privileged backgrounds. What's critical to this process is to champion youth-led networks, which prioritise a youth voice and opinion that must be listened to and acted upon. I'm just going to pass on to Stephanie Bolt as well. Arabella, okay? Steph?
Thanks, Tom. Diolch yn fawr. I'm Stephanie Bolt. I'm a senior external moderator with the University of the Arts London awarding body. I left comprehensive to study law at a Russell Group University. And one of the things from listening again tonight to the youth panel that's really come home to me is the incredible power of their confidence and how I wish I'd had an exposure that they've had to prepare me for the rigors and the toughness of studying a subject like law at a Russell Group uni. And I wish Fahadi well in his journey. I really, really do, as I do Nirushan, his with Cardiff Uni. Working with the youth panel and Tom, it's really powerfully brought home the importance of an asset-based approach to skills development. Each of the young people talking tonight on the video and part of the panel tonight as well, they were recommended by colleagues across the sector, many of whom are on the call this evening. And they were recommended for their wisdom and tenacity, and also how they bring real life experience to put words into action, and how they care. They're a credit to the organisations they've worked with. And it really highlights the critical need for these schemes and programmes to connect, as Tom and others are saying. Putting words into action, it's never easy. And being able to have the confidence and skill to place those words is really tough. And it has to start somewhere, and it has to build from the inside. Thanks, Tom. And I'm handing back to Kiara.
Oh, Arabella, actually, sorry.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Steph. And yeah, thank you, Steph, for all your support as well. And Steph and Tom, you've just been wonderful. So we're going to have a Q&A now. So if anybody has any questions they would like to ask ourselves as a youth panel, I will ask you to put them into the chat box. It's just probably the easiest way. And then Chris, I think, is going to feed them back to me and I'll read them out.
So Stacey Williams has messaged in asking what was the biggest barrier for you individually. Stacey, was that towards an individual or just towards the panel as general? As a panel, cool. So Arabella, do you want to answer this one quickly?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Stacey. I think yeah, like I talked about in my sort of introduction, I think I've been really fortunate to work with Written Craft Centre and Sioned. I know you're here. Thank you for all the opportunities. But I think, yeah, you know, it's living in a rural part of North Wales. I think, you know, I didn't always feel that there were a wealth of opportunities available in terms of jobs. I went to university in Edinburgh. I'm currently based in Manchester because the reality is that, yeah, it's near impossible to find work in a local community. And I think, as Kiara touched on, you know, that's something that I feel I would really like to do, but it's hard. And I think, yeah, that's definitely a big takeaway, I think, for organisations from this evening. But yeah, I think that was the biggest barrier for me.
We've got a question coming from Steph. She wants to know what is next for our youth panel.
Everything and anything, I think, as long as it's we treat it with respect and we treat it fairly, we get paid fairly, because we are young in our career, and just because we're young in our career doesn't mean that we don't have the right expertise and knowledge. So I think, because this started off as a kind of avenue for Kickstart, and then there was additional funding to talk about cultural organisations for a few sessions. So I think that if there's anything that people in this room want to talk to us about, then please feel free to contact us, and Steph will put her email in into the chat. It is our Cultural Associate Youth Panel Gmail account, and we can definitely have conversations with people if they want to have further conversations with us about Kickstart or about our experiences. And as long as we treat it fairly, then I think the sky's the limit with this youth panel, and we can do it together. And if you want us individually in your local arts centre or community centre, then we can hopefully do that as well. I was just seeing that there was another question. Sorry, just going back to the question Stacey asked. Fahadi, would you like to answer Steph's question? It says, what was the biggest barrier for you individually?
Yeah, I'll answer this, and it kind of reiterates what I said earlier about the about getting your foot in the door initially within the arts. So I feel like a lot of the time that a lot of people are creative. They want to kind of continue. They want to kind of be creative and also find a way to get paid to be creative and find work within the creative sector. But a lot of people don't have the opportunity to get paid for the work that they do. I found that as soon as I got a foot in the door within the arts industry, everything became quite smooth sailing from that point on. Opportunities came to me rather than me going out for them. And a lot of the time, if you're determined and you're working hard on what you do, if you have the opportunity to show the skills that you have, then it gets a lot easier from that point on. So I'd definitely say the biggest barrier initially is just getting your foot in the door and starting out within the industry. And what I would say is the Kickstart scheme offers young people that opportunity to get their foot in the door, to work within an arts organisation, to get paid for being creative. And through that, hopefully they build up the skills and the ability to showcase their work, showcase their talents and their skills. And then from that point on, things get a lot easier. And that's what we hope the Kickstart scheme can offer young people in the future. So yeah, hope that answers the question.
That's great. Thank you, Fahadi. I know for myself, as a young person growing up in a very deprived area, that money was an issue. I had a single parent household. So the fact that all the opportunities I had didn't have any kind of financial, I didn't have to pay anything to be a part of the opportunities that I had, that helped a lot. And I know that maybe some companies offer a small charge, but I think with the Kickstart placement is being aware of all those access barriers. So travel, money as in like for food or like travel expense, that all those things shouldn't have to fall on a person's shoulder because they don't have the ability to be able to do that themselves. And I think that someone shouldn't have to really explain to the organization, well, I can't do this because of X, Y, and Z. They should be able to just say, I need support, and then the company absolutely just take it on board and say, yes, of course, we can help with this. I think that a lot of these questions coming in are maybe directed towards the breakout rooms, which I think is great. So if we don't answer them now, it's because there are better people to answer these questions. But there was a question that came from Miranda saying, what are your views as a youth panel in terms of the £1,500 that organisation get? Should young people individually get to decide how it is spent? Nirushan, would you like to take charge on this question?
Yeah, sure. I think that's interesting because I think one way to look at this is making sure the young person coming into the organization knows what they want from it. And part of that is looking at where that money goes into. So I think my opinion is that they should have input and understand that there is this support provided for organization, so you can be transparent on where that's spent and you can show them the support that is over a period of a few months. But it's also important for organizations to realize that some young people might come and they might not be sure where that money might need to be spent. So it's providing that additional support to say, look, these are our options, this is where we can utilize this funding that we have. So it's all about having that co-led conversation where you agree with the young person, this is what they want and this is what they want to do in their journey in developing themselves. As long as you do that and provide the support and development in place, I don't think it will be a negative impact on if organization decided how that money is spent. So it's always important that when you get that young person through the door, have a conversation, what they want to see 6 months from now, what kind of support can you provide them, what development opportunities, and where that money is spent. So you're fully transparent and involve young people in that conversation. Otherwise, you'll think what you're doing is best, but in reality, it's not supporting that person at all. So I think, yeah, that's my personal view. And if the panel disagrees with me, please do say.
No, that's great. Thank you, Nirushan. We have had plenty of conversations around that, and I can gladly say that that's always been a topic of discussion, and we've always kind of agreed on that. Just because I'm aware of time, if you do have any more questions that are specifically for the young people of this panel, please do send them across to the Cultural Associate Youth Panel email, and myself and Steph will be monitoring that, and we can pass them through to the right people. Ideally as well, if you do have questions that are maybe Kickstart based, we can also get you in touch with the right people, but we are not probably the best people to talk to you about the logistics of Kickstart, because there's so many, not so many, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on that we probably don't know, that someone else better knows. So I'm going to pass on to Sean Gale, I believe. No, Sean Baker, sorry. And she's going to chat to you about the Gateway role supporting organisations.
Hiya, can you all hear me? Yeah, fab. So I'm not going to speak half as eloquently as the youth panel just did. I am going to speak in very, very quickly though, because I have a very short amount of time to get across as much as I can. But I've just shared my contact details in the chat, so I'm happy to take any information afterwards. Just feel free to email me. So basically, WCVA are acting as a gateway to the Kickstart scheme for not-for-profit organisations across Wales. You don't have to go through through WCVA to access the scheme. However, we're there to give you support through the application process and actually during the placement itself. We don't provide any of the employability support directly to the young people, but that's why we ensure you get the full £1,500 support fee. We will offer you support as the employer though, so we will give you access to an online project management database. We've got templates for start, exit, soft skills monitoring, case study templates, all for your use during the scheme, and also just to be there to answer any questions that you have throughout. We have seen many weird and wonderful circumstances, so we probably already know the answer to your question. If I don't, I know who to go to and get that resolved as quickly as possible. Basic requirements to access the scheme is that you must have at least 1 year of accounts on either Companies House or Charities Commission website, because DWP will carry out what they call cabinet spotlight checks, which is a financial viability check on your organisation, and this is very much pass fail. And we don't get feedback on why you didn't pass. So just bear that in mind. WCVA can't help you pass. That is a completely independent check. What we can help you do is make sure we put the best narrative forward for your placement. So we have got I've put the link there to our MAP website, which is where our very brief application is. We would like you to talk about how this placement won't jeopardize existing employees' jobs. It won't replace any recent redundancies. You need to be talking about how this is a role that is commensurate with national minimum wage. We don't want you having a whole host of extreme requests, but paying a young person national minimum wage. It has to be commensurate with the role, okay? We will obviously want you to if you can pay more, WCVA are a real living wage employer. So if you can pay more, we would encourage you to do so, but we understand that smaller organisations may not have the financial capacity to do so. You will be reimbursed 25 hours a week at the age-related national minimum wage. The young person will be at the end of the 6 months, okay? We also want you to describe the support mechanisms. This is the most important part, and I'm going to completely mirror what the youth panel have said. You need to be talking about your safeguarding, your risk management. You're going to carry out an induction with a baseline assessment so that you can tailor your support approach to the young person's needs. This is a baseline assessment with them. It's a cooperative decision. You decide what the young person needs together. You don't dictate that. You then move forward and at least on a monthly basis, review that and make sure you're going in the right direction, change tack if that's not working, and again, work together to make sure that the progression is right for the young person. At the end of the scheme or nearing the end of the scheme, we want you to be working with them to update that CV with all that great stuff they've learnt with you, making sure that you're leaving them opportunities to attend interview and maybe support them with job searching activities. That's all if you can't keep them on as an employer yourself. And also we can give you lots of information about apprenticeship schemes, and also the young people will be entitled to REACT funding at the end of the placement. We will submit applications in batches. The last batch will be submitted middle of October, so we really can't stress the urgency enough. We need to get those applications in because it can take 4 weeks for DWP to approve any placement, and that will leave you only a short amount of time to actually get the recruitment underway. We will, while the application is submitted, ask you to start drafting job descriptions in the hope that you will be approved. And we've got a secret weapon on the team. The Kickstart administrator is a young person that has come through the Kickstart scheme themselves. They review the job descriptions and they will tell you outright if they are enticing for a young person, if they're appealing, if they're a worthwhile placement, and they will give you tips and guidance. We again mirror what the youth panel is saying. This is about attributes and not a specific level of qualification attained. For example, if your job is related to money handling, yes, you'll need a good level of numeracy, but you don't need C and above at A-level maths. We know that many young people have had alternative education routes and they will be off-put by jobs that have really specific qualification requirements and experience. So make sure you're putting what you need and not necessarily what you want. You know, that is something that young people can develop in your placement and in your support. I also want you to know that there are certain things that don't work. We have had real big problems where job titles have been put, they come across too senior. So you're saying, for example, centre manager. They just don't get the applicants because they are too intimidating. If you put trainee centre manager or assistant centre manager, it's far more enticing for the young person to apply. The other things that we struggle with are requirement for a car, access to a car. We really can't fill those placements. It's a very privileged thing to own and be able to run a car, and that expectation is too high. And also be aware that once jobs that are based in a very remote location without transport links, you're going to struggle if you're not providing measures of getting there. Okay. And finally, I would say just a really positive story I wanted to say actually was that we had a young person who did have a master's in film and she couldn't get anything in the sector she wanted to work in. Everyone said she had no experience. She went and worked for Gwernan FM, worked there for 4 months and has now secured a runner role on Derry Girls, the TV show. So she just needed that platform to really demonstrate that she could get a bit of experience, and now she's got, you know, a real job of her dreams. So that's a really great example of what these skills, what this opportunity can do. Please, please, please email me if you have any questions, because I know how quick that just went.
That's great. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to say I'm handing over to Nicola now, aren't I? Nicola Lewis from DWP. She's the Employer Relations Manager for South East Wales.
That's perfect. Thank you very much, Sean. We have worked together, so I know how well WCVA will look after you. Obviously, I can't promote one person. It's not for me to do that. As Sean said, I work for DWP, Department of Work and Pensions. My role, I'm mainly based in South East Wales, employer engagement, but where there's one of me, I promise you, there is another one in North and Mid Wales and South West Wales. So I'll make sure that I put their links onto the chat bar before I leave. I think what's key for me is hearing the stories from people, which has been brilliant, because without young people telling their story, that message gets lost. And so this is a brilliant panel for me to come along to. So thank you very, very much. I know I've only got 3 minutes, and I've most probably done a minute already with my introduction. So I have got a PowerPoint, which Tom is going to share, and I'll happily send that out to everybody straight away afterwards. So if I just go very briefly with this, I know we're mentioning dates and we're not mentioning dates. So can I just say, work with them before the 1st of October if you're new to this. You have got to get your processes right. You have got to get your application right. And we want to make sure that as soon as you apply, you get the best possible chance of your application to be accepted. So if I could just go on to the next slide, please. Thank you, Tom. So what is Kickstart? I think it says everything here for you. For 6 months, the government will fund you to provide a job role for a young person. We ask that this job role is in addition to any normal recruitment. And from what one employer said to me is, if I can run my business without this Kickstart person, that is how I approached it, because that Kickstart person is going to be a new employee coming fresh into the business, and we need to be there to support them. So 100% of the salary for 25 hours a week, national minimum wage or living wage, will be paid by the government for you. National insurance contributions and things like that. All of the information is on the .gov site, so I do urge you to have a look at that for us. We've talked about the £1,500. Again, I think it was Fahadi, was it, who actually said it would be really good for the young people to have a say in how that £1,500 is spent. So you speak with your employer and see what training is best for you. That £1,500 there is for employability to support, so that that employer can support that young person as best they can. And I think back to when I was young, quite a long time ago, when I first started my job, I didn't have a clue where to go, what to do. And it's really about embracing that young person and bringing them along into your business. So you must be able to provide that for your young people, and that is key to the Kickstart programme. And as I said, please try and get your applications in as soon as possible. So if we can move on to the next slide, please, Tom. So that's just a recap, and I'll send this to you. And at the bottom is the link for everything that you need to know. And also we'll give you information on any support and any people that you can speak to later. So the next slide, please, Tom. Thank you. So why should I sign up to Kickstart? Well, I think, to be honest, from what everybody is saying, it's very clear why. We want to give people the opportunity. It's been a difficult time for everybody, but mostly for young people who haven't found employment, or they've just had temporary vacancies. They need that stability, they need that support, and they need employers to help them now get through this COVID crisis for us. And it isn't just about COVID, it's about people now getting their career back onto track. And we want to make sure that employers play their part in this. It is really important that young people feel supported. If you look at we were looking at figures, and I'm not going to bore you with them, but from February 2020 to May 21, there was a 77% increase in young people claiming a benefit. Now, that is quite a high number in any means, and we really do need to work hard. We've had great success with the Kickstart so far. In Wales, over 11,000 vacancies that have come through, and now we're working hard to find the right people to join those Kickstart vacancies. If I can go on to the next slide, please. So a gateway, nice introduction for Sean. Sean is a gateway, and there's lots of other gateways on the .gov site. Please have a look, see what fits your needs as an employer. Gateways are very, very supportive for you. They'll help you through the process. But I think somebody mentioned in the panel, well, how do they apply? How do we get our jobs on there? They would be loaded onto the system, not for everybody to see initially, because that young person has to apply via their work coach. That is the only way that they can apply. And the reason for that is, firstly, we have to make sure they're eligible. And also we have to make sure that that work coach works with that employer to make sure the right person comes through. So I think really what's key for everybody here is to make sure, if you're going to place a vacancy with a gateway or on your own, is that once your vacancy is live, you make sure you connect then with your named contact so that they can get you in touch with that job centre. You can go into the job centre, we're open for business, we welcome you with open arms. You can come in, you can speak to the work coaches, tell them about the roles you've got, interview your customers. You can do whatever you like in our job centres, just about within reason, I promise. Could I have the next slide, please? So how long does the application take? I won't go through this chart here because, again, I've most probably gone over my 3 minutes. At the moment, it's about 21 days before they'll even give you a reply back. And then really, I suppose it's about 6 to 8 weeks before your application could go live. So again, I can answer any questions later on for that one for you. I can have the next slide, please, Tom. So here you'll see some really good links. So there's the .gov site where you can look at all the information, how you apply, how you upload your information on there. There are videos that can support you. And also, I need you to remember that every stage, once your application has gone through, you will have a named contact, like myself, who will support you through the process. On here, I do apologise, these are all South East Wales contacts, but I will put in the chat bar, like I said, South West Wales and North and Mid Wales for you. So that's it for me for now. We've got lots of lovely good news stories that we can share with you, and happy to speak to you later. Thank you very much. So I'm now going to pass on to Sarah Lee.
Great, thank you, Nicola. Also, thanks, Sean. It was super interesting hearing your talk, because I'm talking now about how we created 2 job descriptions, and I wish that I'd heard all of that before doing that. And I have been very lucky that I've been in a couple of these Kickstart sessions with Steph and hearing from some of the young people before. And so that really helped me in creating those job descriptions with the organisation. So my name's Sarah. I'm the head of innovation and engagement at Wales Millennium Centre, which means I look after our community and our creative learning teams. And I push those things forward from a strategic perspective. And I also look after infrastructural projects, including our Makerspace feasibility study, which is looking at how we create spaces at the centre for communities and young people to make. So we were lucky enough, we were actually working with CC Skills as our gateway, as we have a pre-existing relationship with them, and they kindly offered us to be part of their bid, and through that we had 2 spaces that we could kind of go for. So the first thing that we did as an organisation was to just reassess how at this current time we could support 2 young people at the beginning of their careers to be within the organisation when we ourselves are like restarting and recovering after the pandemic. And so I think it's really important for you to look at where in your organisation you can provide the support that like young people will be able to do that. And for us, that was within our arts and creative team. So for a young person who could come in and have experience within our producing teams, who produce all of our activity, from working with young people to working with local communities to making our productions to programming our main stage productions. And our other part of our organisation was our operational point of view, so within our finance and HR and IT teams. And I think it's really important that a lot of people kind of misunderstand the different jobs and the careers that there are within the arts. Within the centre, we have accountants, we have IT specialists, we have marketers, we have we have front of house customer experience assistants. So for us, we wanted to use this as an opportunity to kind of break down some of the barriers that people might think about when they're looking at a career in the arts. And I think we've heard that recently, like echoed by our colleagues like within the film industries and such as well. Oh, and I'm going to come and look at questions afterwards. But basically, what we then went and did was kind of think about, okay, these jobs can't and neither should they like replace kind of jobs that existed or currently exist or that we need to refill or we're going to refill. So if we were a young person who wanted a career in the arts but maybe had an experience of working in an arts organisation before and didn't know all of the different jobs and roles and stuff, what could we offer and what would be kind of interesting? And we started from that perspective. We also use this opportunity to think about, we've been thinking a lot about inclusion and diversity within the centre, within our employees at the centre, and within our programme strategy. So for us, this was a real opportunity to look at how we could maybe use this opportunity to kind of be part of a strategy to support us in moving forward in becoming more diverse and becoming more inclusive as an employer. So the next thing that we did was we started to draw up those job descriptions. And I think what was really difficult for myself and some of my colleagues was thinking about not necessarily in relation to what we would want them to do specifically from a day-to-day business basis, but then thinking about what are the attributes that those people need and really kind of simplifying. So we started with, say, between us, we worked in a group to do this. We started with 2 pages of things to then in the end, when we submitted it, 1 paragraph, because actually we didn't need to say any more. And by saying those more things, we were kind of putting people off because we were expecting more. And something that we did with the support of staff was that we approached a young person who, Nirushan, he's part of this conversation today, but we paid him for him to feed back on the job descriptions that we had created. And what had become really apparent was around some of the language that we were using. I think when you're part of a sector and when you're part of an industry, and when you're used to kind of trying to get people to attend different events and things like that, it's about then cutting back and going well, what is the language that we needed? So terms that we would use, such as cauldron and provocative to some young people and to some people in different cultures and stuff, those types of terms probably aren't the most even though we think they look fancy and they sound really interesting, actually they're not the right terms to use in those specific areas. So that was something that was really helpful to us. So I think really the next part of it was thinking about what do we offer and what can we offer as support. So we're offering mentoring. How do we actually make those job descriptions specific, but also allow us to be able to tailor them for an individual? So it was really about thinking about how do we really kind of pull things back and cut things back. And so, in the end, we were looking for people who had drive, that would be committed to the role, the ability to learn, someone who was organized, somebody with basic IT skills and explaining what that was, being a communicator, being helpful. For our role, that those people will need a DBS check because they might be working with young people or children or other adults, but just really kind of cutting it back and thinking about the skills you need, not what you want them to actually do. And so I suppose that's it from me. I hope that was helpful. And I don't think our jobs have actually been advertised at the moment because I think they're going through the process of going on the DWP, or at least they were going to be put forward this week. But yeah, just really kind of trim it back and ask a young person or use WCVA and get them to look at theirs, but really consider that from the beginning, because, it's really exciting. I think also thinking about I think about my journey within the performing arts and how much work I did for free. That's not okay anymore. And that shouldn't have been okay when, I was going through that and other people were going through that. So don't if you are asking somebody to do something in the slightest way, make sure that you're paying them for that and that skill and stuff. Yeah, thanks. I think that's all from me. So I'm now handing over to Sian Gale. So thanks, Sian.
Diolch yn fawr, Sara, diolch yn fawr. A diolch yn fawr yn arbennig i'r panel, roedd y sesiwn yn arbennig o dda. A dwi'n credu bod e'n mynd i fod yn ddefnyddio i Kickstart, ond hefyd dwi'n credu bod llawer o'r gwaith i chi wedi wneud yn mynd i fod yn dda yn y dyfodol, gan cynnwys pethau fel...
future, such as apprenticeships.
It's coming through my headphones as well, I don't know why. Okay. So, Tom, would you mind starting sharing? Diolch.
So sorry, Sean, you might have to click so you don't have interpretation, I suppose.
Yeah, okay, I'll take, okay. So my name is Sian Gale and I work for BECTU, which is the trades union that represents those behind the scenes in TV, film, theatre and live events. Sorry, yn siarad Cymraeg nawr. A dwi'n gweithio ar y cynllun o'r enw Cult Cymru. So nod Cult Cymru yw partneriaeth rhwng yr undebau yn y diwydiannau creadigol. A beth i ni'n neud yw darparu hyfforddiant i'r sawl sy'n gweithio yn y diwydiannau creadigol. Sleid nesaf, gwelwch yn dda? So dyma'r undebau creadigol. Mae TUC Cymru yn sort of asiantaeth ymbarel sy'n edrych ar ôl yr undebau, felly mae yna 48 undeb yn rhan o TUC Cymru. A wedyn mae BECTU, undeb y cerddorion, undeb y sgwenwyr, equity a undeb y sgwenwyr. Okay, so rôl undebau. So dwi'n gwybod bod amser yn bryn, so na i ddim mynd yn hir mewn i hyn, ond mae'n bwysig bod pobl, pan maen nhw'n dod mewn i gwaith am y tro cyntaf i rai, bod nhw'n deall beth yw cytundeb yn y gwaith, a dyna le mae undebau'n dod i fewn. Hyd yn oed le mae ddim cynrychiolaeth i undeb yn y gweithlu, mae fe'n bwysig bod pobl ifanc yn deall y feddwl yna, sut maen nhw'n cael eu talu, beth maen nhw'n cael eu talu, unrhyw prosesau, os maen nhw'n broblem yn y gwaith. Ar gyfer pobl llawrydd hefyd, mae arian yn bwysig, mae'n debyg, hyd yn oed os ych chi'n mynd mewn i rhai o'r swyddi yma, mae'r diwydiant yn dibynol iawn ar bobl llawrydd, felly byddwn ni yna i helpu y bobl ifanc a gweithio gyda'r cyflogwyr i wneud hynny. Mae cydraddoldeb yn bwysig iawn i undebau, wastad i bod yn bwysig i ni fel undebau, felly ni'n gwybod bod y ffaith bod yn diwydiant ni ddim yn gynrychiolaeth o'r cymunedau. Byddai'n meddwl bod yna diffyg creadigrwydd yn y diwydiant, mae yna diffyg arloesoedd a mae yna llai o cynhyrchiant achos mae yna rhai bobl yn ddi-waith dyle bod yn gweithio, gallu bod yn gweithio yn ein diwydiant ni. A mae BECTU wedi gweithio rhywbeth o'r enw i gweithredu sort of amrywiaeth. Teitl nesaf, gwelwch yn dda?
So we back to be working with...
Okay. So dyma beth oedd yr undebau'n gweud bod angen ar gyfer Kickstart. Dwi'n credu bod y panel chwarae teg di mynd trwy'r rhain i gyd, felly na i mynd mlaen i'r sleid nesaf.
Quite a few of these to do with the Kickstart.
Next slide, please. Just yn sydyn iawn, dyma be allwn ni gynnig i cyflogwyr, gweithio gyda chi ar rhain oll, a na i ddim darllen y mas heno, achos dwi'n gwybod bod amser yn bryn, ond yn aml iawn i cael cyrsiau arbennig ar gyfer y diwydiant, weithio mae rheina ond yn bodoli yn Llundain, ond allwn ni wneud siŵr trwy gweithio gyda nifer o cyflogwyr bod ni'n gallu cael yr hyfforddiant yma yng Nghymru a sicrhau bod ni'n cydweithio ar hynny. A wedyn annog a mentora, byddwn ni'n gweithio gyda y pobl Kickstart, ond hefyd gyda pobl yn y gweithlu helpu nhw gyda sut maen nhw'n cefnogi yr hyfforddau Kickstart, a mae hwnna'n holl bwysig. Bod yna hyfforddiant ar y ddwy ochr i'r sawl sy'n rhoi yr annog a mentora a rhai sy'n derbyn e. Okay, next please. So na fe o fi, sori oedd hwnna'n gyflym, ond beth sy'n bwysig i ni fel undebau, bod unrhyw gwaith yn gwaith teg a bod yna gynrychiolaeth o pob man o'r gymuned. Diolch yn fawr.
From every part of society. Many thanks.
Thank you, Sean. And on to our last speaker, Miriam.
Hi. Yeah, very quickly, because I'm conscious of time. Can you hear me? Sorry, yeah. My name is Miriam. I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Standards at the University of the Arts London awarding body. So we're an exam board and we work particularly within the creative arts. And I've been really keen to support this project because it's really important to us that we support young people into careers in the creative arts, because after all, that's what all of our qualifications are about. And we've been supporting the development of the project, and hopefully, you know, really keep pleased to see what the young people have produced with the video, and all of all of what you said has been really, really positive. So from my perspective, what I wanted to say was that we can offer smaller qualifications alongside a placement if an employer felt that might be a suitable way to cover some of the knowledge and learning that you want that young person to acquire whilst in the placement with you. But also that if for any reason you're unable to retain a young person after a placement, we can direct learners to where there are a range of suitable progression opportunities if they want to study further and pick up qualifications within the sector they're going into. We offer qualifications in a lot of the organisations in Wales. A lot of the colleges have qualifications available in all the creative arts, in art and design, in media and games development, in fashion and retail, and in music and performing arts and dance. So I think for me, if there's anything we can do to sit behind all this amazing work, that's what we'll do, because I'm very much that as an awarding body, we sit behind the scenes and we're there to support if a qualification is required, or if you'd like advice and guidance in terms of how you might devise a programme for an individual learner that's working with you, we really happily support that as well. And working closely with Steph, who's obviously really involved in this project. So from my perspective, you know, I was going to say a lot more, but I'm really conscious of time. But the one thing I would say is that my own daughter did an internship, and she was very lucky to be able to do an internship because I could help her financially, and I was really conscious all the way through that wasn't something that was open to many young people and many of the young people we work with. So I I saw the benefit of her being able to do that, and she now works for an organisation where she interned, but this would have given her a way of doing that in a way that's far more inclusive and far more open and far more available to all young people, and that's exactly what I'm really keen to support. I also volunteer with an organisation in Bristol called Knoll West Media Centre that is running a Kickstart programme that's really successful. So I'm really, you know, if I can offer advice from that perspective as well, because we're working just over the water, delivering some really successful Kickstarts within the creative sector as well. And any advice and guidance we can offer. One of my colleagues is also on the line, Vicky Cull, who's the Chief Examiner for Art and Design. She also would hope be available to offer support and guidance if we can. But really, you know, everybody else speaking are the people who can make this happen. I'm just happy to sit behind the scenes and do what we can to support, because I think it's such a great project. So that's me.
That's great. Thank you, Miriam. I am really aware that we've run over time, so thank you for those of you who have managed to hang on. We're not going to do the breakout rooms because we have run over with such a lot of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all the relevant information from all of the speakers, emails, PowerPoints, and I'm going to put them in an email and I'm going to send them all across to everyone who is in the call today. So you can be able to reach out and have the questions that you really need answered. 2 seconds. Steph is asking if there are any burning questions, and you can ask, but I'm aware that everyone might need to move on to workshops or teaching or whatever. So I would urge you to use the email addresses and maybe create your own meeting or create your own kind of Zoom that you can have this conversation with more in depth. So I am just going to wrap up quickly. I would like to thank you all so much for coming. It honestly means the world that a lot of us have a lot of supporting people in the room, and that a lot of other people have joined from our word of mouth and like our call to action video. I want to thank the speakers for giving up their time to talk to you today about the all the ways they can support you and help you and talk to you about Kickstart. I'd like to just lastly thank the youth panel. Like I said at the beginning, without them and the discussions from May, this wouldn't have been possible to put forward. And for Tom and Steph kind of facilitating the first kind of call out to us to be able to come together, they've been a real support and a real help. So without the youth panel and them, this really couldn't have happened, and I think that it's so great that it has happened, so everyone can know about it. Please don't get discouraged. If you're a small company, there are ways that you can co-host with other larger companies who are running Kickstart placements. I did see in the chat that people were worried about that. There are ways you can connect up, and there are ways that you can offer support to a bigger organization that's offering the Kickstart placement. So if you know there's someone in the area that you are wanting to do that placement, then please just reach out to them. And as the speakers have said, we've got really short time for conversations to happen. So if you are really keen to get this sorted, start the ball rolling early tomorrow morning, I would say, and get those conversations happening as quickly as you can to make sure that you don't miss out on being able to create a placement within your organisation.